Hello and welcome to the new track guide in a HYMO track guide series. New year 2023, so happy new year everyone, and new LFM season 9 is starting. So I'm gonna try focusing on the sprint series, cover all the tracks that there are gonna be in the season. Maybe sometimes I'll just cover a track from the 45-minute races series, we'll see. But first week we're starting with Brands Hatch. Maybe now it seems like it's a little less popular track than it used to be. It also used to be in ACC very much one of a kind track before British DLC came out, because now we have Alton Park, Snetterton, a couple more of those really tight British old school tracks. Back in the day it used to be that in ACC we only had Brands Hatch if you wanted this kind of experience, and it was a lot more popular. But now we have it for this week for LFM. Personally, I really like the track. It's one of my favorites. Loads of high-speed corners, but with also a lot of undulations that make the track really interesting, really challenging, and it has tons of flow. Overall, you wanna have a car here that will give you that ability to carry loads of speed through those third, fourth gear corners with a lot of rotation, but also stability here everywhere will be an issue on the entry to many of those corners. The balance of the cars is quite good. There are a lot of competitive cars. Obviously the Porsche, Ferrari, Audi, McLaren, Bentley is really good here, Aston Martin, even Mercedes is good here, although for longer races it's gonna run off the tires. There are really a lot of cars that can be good at Brands Hatch if you know how to use them. Let's take a look at one of the laps I did with Porsche for HYMO with our HYMO setup. All the setup available on tracktitan.io, links in the description. There's link for Track Titan, there's link to our HYMO Discord, check those out. So yeah, let me show you what's what at Brands Hatch with a lap of 1 minute 21.9. Okay, first corner. As you're approaching the braking zone, position the car on the left side of the road and look at the braking boards on the left side. There are gonna be braking boards with 3 stripes, 2 red stripes, and then 1 red stripe. You're gonna want to brake between the board with 2 stripes and the board with 1 stripe. Basically, exactly between those two, that's gonna be your braking point. There are also 2 orange markings on the guardrail on the left side. Also basically between those two, that's gonna be your braking zone. Those you can take as the reference. Also, if the track is rubbered up, you can look just on the rubber on the track. There's gonna be a patch of rubber that extends all the way to the left side of the road, but then that patch disappears and there's a lighter tarmac right after it. That's where you want to brake. As you're going on the brakes, you already want to have the car positioned in a way so it's pointing kinda already to the right. So just before you go on the brakes, change the car's trajectory a little bit, but then as you hit the brakes, straighten out the steering wheel, because you're unloading the rear tires, you're loading up front tires, the car will start to rotate a little. So you need to control that rotation as you're slowing down, and only then bring the car into the apex and let it roll through the corner. The track goes here downhill, so the track is getting from underneath the car. The whole car is unloaded, it feels really light, so you want to be really smooth on the turn-in. You don't want to be way too aggressive with how you throw the car into the corner, just smoothly add rotation towards the apex. Your apex is gonna be where basically those bollards are, but it's very likely that during qualies or the race they're just gonna be gone. Someone's gonna knock them over. So you can also see where the rubber on the inside curb is. That's also your reference to learn where that apex you want to hit is gonna be. Back on the throttle, but remember the car is very light here still, so release the steering towards the outside of the corner, straighten out the car and let it accelerate towards the outside. There's gonna be a big compression on the exit where the car is gonna gain a lot of grip, so you want the car to be really nice and settled before that. Try to use as much track as possible. You can go all the way to the gravel, but obviously don't touch the gravel. The more speed you carry through the whole turn 1, through the whole paddock hill bend, the better. You don't really need to worry about the momentum that you're carrying out of the corner. You're basically going straight into the next braking zone. Now, the hairpin, braking into Druid. There's a lot of braking reference that you can take. There's a bridge, there's a board, there's an orange marking on the guardrail on the left. You can use them all as a reference, and you wanna brake just before that orange guardrail. Watch out, because the way how you perceive distance can be a little deceptive. So remember, don't brake underneath that bridge, and on that braking board, you need to brake before them. You're actually couple of lengths before that braking board. Brake diagonally towards the inside of the corner and trail brake deep into the apex. You're still going up the hill and it's still quite a steep climb, so there's a lot of grip and you need to trail brake deep into the corner, use that grip to rotate the car. And then after the apex, now you're gonna be starting going down the hill. So now the car is gonna be again a little bit lighter. Obviously the feeling is not gonna be as scary as in some of the high speed corners, like for example in turn 1, but the car does go light and it has little less grip now. So you're gonna have initially a little bit of understeer on the exit, then as you're going on the throttle from very low gear, it's gonna be very easy to get a kick of oversteer. To accelerate as early as possible, you need to release the steering and use all the track on the outside. And here's a big feature, let's call it, of Brands Hatch, that not everything that's green is gonna be grass. So for example here, right past the red and white curb, there's also a bit of concrete through which the grass is growing. But underneath that grass, you can see that there is a bit of concrete and you can drive over it easily, just like you would drive over a curb. There's gonna be a lot of places on the track where you're gonna be able to use a lot more road that you would think you could, because you can ride that concrete on the outside of the track. As early as possible, transition the car to the right side of the road, again similarly as into turn 1. You don't want the car going into the next corner be pointing towards right. You want it to be more straight or even pointing towards the corner already, so just minimize the amount of turning that you're gonna have to do through the next corner. Again, there are braking reference on the right, there's a braking board, there's that orange marking on the barrier on the right. You can use them as you're leveled with them, hit the brakes, but you're already turning into the corner. Don't be aggressive with those brakes, be a little bit gentle, don't just slam on 100%, go 90, 80, watch out because you're gonna unload the rear while turning, the car is gonna want to rotate, and with Brands Hatch, with that second sector that will require a lot of rotation, the car is gonna be twitchy in the braking zones, and here it's one of those braking zones where it can step out because you're already turning. Rotate the car towards the apex and you can go on the throttle way earlier than you think, because it's one of those places where there's a lot of concrete on the outside, on the right, on the exit, and you can use all that concrete to drive over it and use all the track limits. Like on most tracks, track limits are gonna be white line plus a curb. So here you basically have to have both tires at least on the curb, like that. Entry is gonna be really tricky here, and we have somewhat of a straight after it, so prioritize the exit here. After Graham Hill Bend, there's 30s, very long corner with very tricky exit, and a very crucial exit because there's the longest straight on the track. Braking reference here is gonna be the same as corner before, the board and a orange marking on the right. You want to brake as you're just past that board and when you're leveled with that orange marking. You can even try braking a little bit after. Brake from the outside to the middle of the track, because you want to open up the corner initially. Watch out because you're braking while turning again and the car can be a little bit twitchy on the entry. Then later into the corner, start bringing the car to the inside of the corner. For the apex reference, I use the curb on the inside. You can see that the curbing on the inside follows a certain radius initially, and then there's a point at which it follows like a different radius, and when it changes from one radius to another, that curb on the inside, that's where I want to get my car to the apex of that corner. From there, with majority of the rotation completed, release the steering, straighten out the car and go early on the throttle, accelerate initially in a straight line, then you can use a little bit of the curb on the outside, but here there's no concrete on the outside, so make sure to go off that curb back on the track as quickly as possible, not to go over the bumps, because then the car will start jumping, it will lose its momentum and you'll suffer throughout the entire straight with loss of acceleration and low speed. There's a lot to be gained here in this corner, it's very technical, very long. You can experiment with different approaches, brake a little bit later, apex a little bit later, maybe apex a little bit earlier, keep the car sometimes a bit more wider on the entry, sometimes a bit more tighter on the entry. There's a lot of different approaches, and probably different cars and different setups will require a little bit different approach. After longest straight on the track, there's the fastest corner of the track. 4th gear, apex speed almost even above 180 kph. Brake right before the last braking board on the left and downshift to 4th gear. Watch out on the entry, you have to watch out for the stability of the car, maybe stabilize the car a little bit on the throttle, but now that's the sector of the track, second and third sector of the track, where you will benefit a lot from that high rotation setup, where you'll be able to here go very early on the throttle and continue with that rotation throughout the entire corner and carry loads of speed. As you're going on the throttle, just graze a curb on the inside, but don't go over it, not to unsettle the car, but then accelerate very early and all the way to the outside. Use all the curb on the outside, but again, there's no concrete. You can just go a little bit on the grass on the outside. It won't really matter. The key is gonna be the speed in the middle of the corner. Next corner, your reference is again the board on the left. You can cut quite a lot of the inside here. Watch out, because the car could jump a little. Unload the inside of the car, go on the throttle early, so you're allowing the car to climb that curb. You can cut quite a lot of it. And then you can go on the throttle even earlier than you think, because we have again that concrete on the outside, a lot of it. So you can use all the track on the outside all the way to the gravel. It doesn't even look like the concrete is there. You can, in most of the places where the concrete is, you can see it, but here it almost extends even further than you can see it actually being there. So you can use all the track all the way to the gravel. It's actually one of the places when it's easy to invalidate the lap if you're pushing too much, because you can even go too wide and go over the curb, which is the track limit. Next corner, we're gonna have similar situation on the entry as it was in turn 1 and turn 3, where you want to position the car on the outside and open up the corner. Position the car in the way that you're not pointing to the left now, you're pointing more towards the corner, just to minimize that rotation and turning that you're gonna have to do through the corner itself. There's little references here. Of course, you have the board as always, those markings, orange markings on the guardrails, like everywhere. You can use some of them as a reference, but the corner itself is blind and it's difficult to see where the apex actually is. But as the rubber starts, you can go on the brakes, start turning in, and even though the corner is blind, the apex itself is not gonna be that difficult to spot. Cut the curb, but again, unload the inside so the car can easily climb onto the curb and clear it, because if you're gonna cut it too much and have the car that's going more of it in a straight line, it's gonna be easy to touch the curb with the middle of your underbody, and the car will just jump and get extremely unsettled, and after the corner you're still gonna have to be turning, so that will put you in an extremely dangerous situation. So go over the curb as the outside tires are loaded up and as the inside of the car is unloaded, so the car can easily climb that curb. Then it will clear it with absolutely no issues. Again, a place where on the outside there's a tiny bit of concrete, but that stripe of concrete on the outside is extremely small and it ends sooner than you think. So you can use it on the exit a little bit, but then very quickly go back onto the track. You have to transition to the right side of the road anyway for the next corner. References for the next corner exactly the same. On the right side, the last board and the marking on the guardrail. You can brake about 2 car lengths before you pass those. Try to open up the corner as much and position the car as much on the right as possible, but obviously watch out, there's grass on the outside. It's easy to dip the car into that grass and that will make your car go straight and you'll end up in that gravel in front of you. Also, little detail here to point out if you're trying to maximize the road that you're using. From the cockpit perspective, it looks like there's only tarmac, then there's a white line, and then it looks like there's a tiny bit of tarmac still after the white line, which is sometimes the case, that the white line is not at the very edge of the tarmac, so you can use a tiny bit more road than the white line would suggest. And here it also looks like there's still a bit of tarmac after that line, but if you look closely, it's not actually the tarmac that's past that line, it's a strip of gray gravel. If you already go past that line, your wheels will dip into that gravel and you'll hit the road with your underbody, you'll start scraping the ground and you'll go straight into the gravel. So for the track limits, use white line on Brands Hatch, because there's that strip of gravel that from your perspective looks like it's tarmac and you could use it, but it's not. Here downshift to third gear, sometimes even second in some cars, and trail brake towards the apex. You can see where you need to apex where the curb on the inside starts, that white and red curb on the inside where it starts, just kiss the apex there, and as you past it, already go on the throttle and start opening up the corner all the way to the outside and use all the curb on the outside. Now watch out when you're going through the corner. Initially the car dips into the camber of the road. Initially it's a tiny bit understeery, then as you're hitting the apex, finally the car compresses into the ground, it gains grip, but then right before you enter the curb on the exit, it goes over another bump and suddenly the car goes light. So you have to make sure that you're gonna rotate the car and release the steering or straighten out the car before it goes over that final little crest. So when you're on the final curb on the outside, you can use all the curb to your advantage, but already then have your car straighten out. Release the lateral load that you're putting on the tire there. Like I said, use all that curb to your advantage, but here we don't have any concrete past that, and the curb itself is kind of made like in steps. So first it's wide, then it goes narrower, and then again a lot narrower. So use all that width of the curb to your advantage so you can clear the corner as fast as possible, but then you have to come back onto a track as quickly as possible, not to go over the gravel, the grass, where the car can easily go jumping. For the last braking zone, the reference is gonna be again the last board on the left and the exit road that is on the left. You want to brake between those two, so between the last board and the point at which the exit road begins. Throughout this last corner, you want to help the car naturally follow the undulations of the track. So initially it goes up the hill, but then on the exit, where you would go on the throttle normally, it goes down the hill. So you want to help the car easily clear that hill and gain grip as it's dropping down. So you can't go there on the throttle, you have to still be off the throttle and roll. So roll into the corner with high speed, be patient with the throttle and roll the car through that hill, and only as it starts going down, only then go on the throttle, and you'll be rewarded with loads of grip when it compresses at the exit of the corner. From there, take the shortest route to the line, so stick to the inside, and also since the whole track is angled and the left side of the track is higher than right side of the track, basically going from the right to the left would mean that you're actually climbing up the hill slowly. So just keep to the inside so you're not losing speed by climbing a hill. Gain as much speed throughout the straight, and only then at the end of the straight transition the car to the left to start another lap. I'm gonna now roll the footage so you can see the full lap in full speed. So that's the lap of Brands Hatch. I hope you enjoyed it, and maybe I can also touch on some overtaking spots and overtaking opportunities on this track. The best ones are gonna be at the beginning of the lap, so majority of the track is gonna be you trying to set up an overtake, and then the best overtaking opportunities are gonna be especially turn 2, trying to get a cutback through turn 1 and getting to the inside of Druids into the hairpin, overtaking on the brakes. Turn 3, Graham Hill Bend, I would not recommend that. That would be extremely tricky and it's difficult to get there side by side. But you can set up an overtake for the next corner for Graham Hill Bend, because like I said, it's crucial exit there. Not the longest straight, but if you can get a really nice exit, you can then get to the inside on the entry to start to initiate an overtaking maneuver. Then it's just gonna be you side by side through the exit of 30s and drag race through Hawthorne's Strait. The rest of the track is gonna be all those corners about carrying as much speed as possible through them. Not a lot of braking zones, not a lot of big acceleration zones. So it's just gonna be about sticking as close as possible, trying to set up that overtake that you can do through turn 1, 2, 3 and 4. So yeah, I guess that's gonna be it for the Brands Hatch track guide. I have to thank you all very much for all the positive comments under my first track guide, which was at Imola. Very encouraging comments, so thank you very much for those. I hope I'm gonna be able to bring you as much of those track guides throughout the LFM season. And remember, if you want best setups for LFM, we have best esport grade setups at tracktitan.io. We've recently at HYMO updated all the setups, so all of the cars should be updated. New Ferrari setups are out, new BMW setups are out, all the Porsche setups have been also updated, so you can get those either only by track or get the whole pack for a car. You can get that at tracktitan.io/setups. I'll link everything in the description. We're also planning to in the future give you a lot more setup options to provide you safe setups, wet setups, to give you a lot more options for various skill level drivers. A lot of exciting stuff for HYMO happening this year. Again, thank you very much for watching. I hope to see you in the next track guide.